Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Brit's Cabinet on 22 Panels. It's been a while since we managed to get together. Brit, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I was up late enough to see the Dodgers win the World Series last night. Were you able to hear the fireworks from your house?
It was really fun. Yeah, my wife happened to be walking. We live in Los Angeles. My wife was walking the dog, and
I
it wasn't
bet
really
you the
playing.
dog did not find it fun.
We were far enough away that we could hear them, but it was not terribly disturbing. So
Okay.
it's just neat. And she was outside in the moment when the double play happened, and so she
Yeah.
was walking and came back in, and she goes, "Well, I guess the Dodgers won."
Yeah. Yeah, no, my cousin Jack lives in LA as well, and I was texting with him during the game and he mentioned the fireworks when they were going off, which is how I
I
knew.
know I know
And
you're
now
a
we should go.
lifelong baseball guy, and I am not. I'm an NFL guy, but I
All right.
will occasionally watch baseball. I just haven't watched that much baseball, and it was really only half a
All right.
game probably. My father-in-law was visiting, and I saw more baseball last night than I probably have since McGuire broke the record
Okay.
for home runs, and it was fun. I don't
Sad.
know. I had a good time.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason that Jack and I were texting is I don't think he watches a ton of baseball. So like he was in awe of a lot of stuff. I'm like, yep, this is why I am passionate about this sport.
I also found
It's
myself trying to remember the rules from when I played baseball in the mid '80s.
all right. But yeah, no, what I love about baseball is the number of crazy little things that happen. Actually, what I love about baseball doesn't even come out in playoff baseball. Playoff baseball is kind of a different beast because every team loses 4 out of 7 games multiple times during the season. Right. So the idea that 4 out of 7 games uh, uh, between two of the best teams actually decides who's better is kind of ridiculous. The game has way too many totally random occurrences. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, my uncle was getting upset about the call at home plate because he was rooting for Toronto, and it's like
So close.
it was, and the way the replay rule reads is to overturn the call, it has to be definitive on the video.
Yeah,
So
the
that
same in the
call was
NFL.
so close that if he'd been called out or if he'd been called safe and the Dodgers had challenged it, it also wouldn't have been flipped over. That
Right,
was
right, yeah.
one where like it was just too close to call, even on video. And when it's too close to call on video, the ruling on the field stands.
Yeah, in the NFL, I believe it's irrefutable evidence.
Exactly. Same in baseball. And there just wasn't that for that call, you know. Um, but yeah, no, like the fact that it was Miguel Vargas that tied the game, that the guy who like only made it into the lineup because Andy Pajes was struggling so much. Andy Pajes, who made a fantastic catch to
Oh, was
keep
he
the
the guy who
game
made
from
that catch
ending.
where he took out his teammate in
Right.
the
Where he ran over Enrique Hernandez, who's a whole different player in the playoffs than he is in the regular season,
See, that's the
consistently
stuff
enough
you
over
miss out on.
time to be a real thing.
That's the stuff I miss out on by not watching the game, during the year. All I knew was
Right.
what was directly in front of us. And it was also fun too. Yeah, I like the NFL. I've been watching that for, almost 50 years, I guess, at this point. And so I don't really listen to the guys doing the commentary because I kind of know what's going on. But for baseball, I didn't. And so it was very exciting when the guy goes, the Dodgers are up 5-4, and it's the bottom of the 11th, and it's Toronto's last chance, basically, they have to score if they want to stay in or win the game. And I think it was a man on first and third, and they said if they get a hit, the one team, and if it hits to the outfield, the Jays win, and if it hits to the infield, the Dodgers win. And then it was hit to the infield. So I kind of knew what, like when I
Right.
saw the ball go to the infield, I was like, oh, this means we're going to win, just because I was
I
listening
mean,
to the guy.
it wasn't quite that simple, but it was close.
Yeah. And as a
Um,
viewer, as a casual viewer, it made it, very engaging. I mean, honestly, it did
what
what it was supposed to do. It got me to watch and it made me want to watch
right.
again.
But as a nuanced viewer, like Mookie Betts was a Gold Glove right fielder. In general, there's considered to be a defensive spectrum that goes from shortstop and center field to second base and third base to right and left field to first base. And like you move right on the spectrum as you get older and slower. The idea that you would move left on the spectrum from a corner outfield spot to shortstop, one of the hardest positions on the field, is essentially unheard of. But not only did Mookie do it a couple of years ago, he's now a Gold Glove shortstop. So
Mm,
like the craziness of it being Mookie Betts, who spent a large amount of his career playing right field, which is a completely different position than shortstop. Now he spent a lot of time in the minors playing short and second. It's not like he hadn't played. I mean, half the guys in baseball played shortstop in high school. You
hmm.
know?
Right.
And the other half were center fielders, unless they were left-handed, in which case they were center fielders or first baseman. Right.
Hmm.
um, but like people just don't move left on the defensive spectrum. And not only did he do it because his team needed to, but he excelled at it.
Hmm.
And now one of the most famous Mookie Betts plays in history is going to be him turning a double play that wasn't an easy double play. I mean, he had to go a long way to get that ball. If he was far enough from the bag that normally he would have flipped to the second baseman, but the second baseman was also far enough from the bag, and the runner was fast enough that if he had, they don't get the out at second. If they don't get the out at second, the run scores,
Hmm. Now we're
even if
tied.
they get the out at first. So, like, he had to make that decision in the moment. Nope, I need to run for the bag. I need to beat him to the bag and then throw to first, all on my own, because there's not time to do this the easy way. And we have to get the double play because if we get just one out here, it's tied again.
Hmm. Yeah. It was very exciting. It was a very fun night.
Yeah. So before we get into Absolute Martian Manhunter, your pick, and Alienated, my pick to pair with it, tell me about this contest. And well, for that matter, since the last time you were on, I think you created the foundation. So like, tell me about all of
Yes.
it really
Well,
quick.
so as we've talked and you've seen for a couple of years, I've been talking about autism and pop culture. My son, who's 11, is autistic, and in the years that was his diagnosis when he was 18 months, basically, um, we've been steeped in that world and in learning all about autism and seeing about how it operates in the world. And so I've been speaking about autism in pop culture, doing autism in comic books and authentically creating autistic characters. And also behind the scenes, I'm an attorney who I've worked at Warner Brothers Animation, spent a long time at Nickelodeon, and I've built up a pretty reasonable Rolodex of people who make things, specifically make things for kids. I've been trying to figure out how to get more autistic characters, explicitly autistic characters, into kids' pop culture. And in doing that, I came up with this idea that I needed to incentivize writers to create autistic characters. So since I'm an animation attorney, largely, I started a nonprofit called the Autism Scene. You can go see all kinds of details about them at theautismscene.org. And I started a nonprofit for the purpose of having a spec script competition that would incentivize writers to create new autistic characters interacting meaningfully with series regulars on popular kids cartoon shows. And the idea is then that those there are a couple of ideas I guess at play. One is you incentivize the writers to create these things, by giving them an opportunity to have meetings with people who could theoretically hire them. That's can be a real challenge. How do I get people to know who I am? So I happen to have the Rolodex, and by this competition, if we go through the slush pile and figure out what are the real gems, who are the writers out there who are terrific, then those people who I happen to know, agents and managers and showrunners and people who are in hiring positions in kids animation can maybe help those guys out. And vice versa. They're always looking for new voices. And so all it's going to cost them is 20-minute meeting and reading one script. Um, so for both sides, it's a pretty reasonable exchange. And then in the middle is me, the only to sort of put this all into play, the only thing I'm asking for is that you pick a show, you write an 11-minute script, and that script has a series regular meaningfully interacting with an explicitly autistic character. So we're going to, on the website, we're going to sort of provide a list of cartoon shows that are currently in production. There's no point in writing an episode for the Flintstones, let's say, if there's no current Flintstones show in production. It's not going to get you hired. So we're encouraging people to write for shows that are currently in production. And then we have a lot of those showrunners as what we're calling prizes in the competition itself. So the submission period opens on December 1, it closes on January 31. So there's sort of this 2-month period where you can submit these things. And if the people we're trying to draw in are professional animation writers. It's a kids animated series spec script competition. We're keeping it pretty limited for this year, just so that we're not biting off more than we can chew. And if it's successful, maybe we expand it next year. But then on April 2 next year, at Nickelodeon Animation Studios, we're going to be having the awards ceremony. And so Nickelodeon is not sponsoring it or anything like that, but they're just letting us use their space, which is really nice. And then hopefully that ends up populating Hollywood with more scripts that say the word autism and say the word spectrum and specifically have characters who are explicitly autistic so that it's not coded. And that will normalize it for executives so that when scripts do pop up that have an autistic character, they can say the word autistic. I personally think that's important because I think it's easier for kids, especially young kids, to transfer their understanding of autism in a situation if they see the word autism associated with their robot unicorn friend on their cartoon show was kind to an autistic person and understanding or accommodating or empathetic. And then in turn, when they go to school, that might better help them understand their autistic peers, which, there are many ways to do it. This is the way that I happen to have access to because I know some of these people and I have an understanding of how these work and I have the patience of a lawyer willing to do some paperwork to get it all going. So that's the overall story.
So I have a comment, a thing to add, and then a question. The comment is I will tell the quick story. I gave a copy of Raina Telgemeister's Cartoonist Club to a friend of mine's kid for his birthday this year, and I thought it was going to be meaningful just because it's a great book, and like it obviously was, but the first message I got was how meaningful it was because there was one character who used they them pronouns. So there was only one page that dealt with that at all. But that meant the world to this kid because they also use they them pronouns. So like you don't to be explicitly something doesn't mean that the story has to be about autism or about it's as simple as having the character say, oh, I'm autistic,
Yes.
in the middle of a scene that's completely about something else.
Yeah, it's not a very special episode of Rugrats, right? It's
Right.
SpongeBob runs into the
Right.
SpongeBob runs into the library because he needs to get something. The librarian says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, I'm autistic. Can you mellow out a little bit?" And
Right.
SpongeBob says, "Sure." And then he tries, and of course he can't. It's very tough for
Or
him.
you
He
have
gets his
the
book, and then the librarian gives him his book. He runs away. The episode continues. He's running through the Krabby Patty because later in
right.
the episode he's getting chased. He runs through the pineapple. He kind of tries to walk quietly through the library, also kind of awkwardly, like
Right.
Martin
Right.
Short. And then you've seen a fun episode of SpongeBob and not really thought
Right.
too much about the autism. But what you've
Right.
also seen as a kid is SpongeBob accommodating and having empathy for a person who is explicitly autistic that didn't cost him anything and was still fun and funny, but
Right.
might translate to better behavior when you get to
Right.
school and you have the autistic kid who has different traits, but still needs empathy and understanding and accommodation and inclusion. All those kinds of
Right.
things can be, one show's not going to do it, but if we can flood the zone and get lots of shows, maybe that can make
Right.
a little bit of a difference.
And then the second comment I'll make, I didn't hear you mention the prize other than getting to meet with the showrunners. There is also a cash prize, which
Yeah,
means a
there's
lot
going to be a
to
absolutely.
poor writers.
Especially right now, things have really cooled off in Hollywood. They say that animation is slowly starting to pick up, so maybe it's a good time to get in as well. But there's a $5,000 grand prize winner, and there are also going to be about 15 category winners of things like best sci-fi script and funniest script, and best use of an AAC device, and best script for young kids, and best non-speaking character, and so. Um, anybody, not anybody, the people who are the winners of those categories are the ones who are going to get fed into meetings with people, and hopefully we'll try and pair them. If you're an adventure writer, then we'll try and pair you with the showrunner of an adventure show. A
Right.
lot of the shows that we're going to have represented are some really big shows, some shows that haven't even quite started yet. We've got people from Starfire, the DC Comics one, and Avatar, the Last Airbender one, and Monster High, and Lego Friends, and Hello Kitty, and other shows like that. Also managers from places like, I don't know how much this will mean to anybody but actual writers out there, but Gersh and Verve LA, and we're going to have executives from hopefully from Nickelodeon and Disney and some of the other places, that where I know people and can sort of try to do my best to make connections for people who've gone to this effort, which isn't a horrible effort. It's only an 11-minute episode of a show that already exists. You don't even have to come up with the premise of a show or the characters. They already exist. So hopefully it's not too heavy a lift, but that it can have this effect of seeding the ground with explicitly autistic characters, to normalize it among executives, to have writers even consider it as somebody who might be a character in their story, and to show the many ways in romances and sci-fi and adventure that autistic characters can function in kids pop culture, so that normal diets for kids consuming cartoon videos and stuff will include autistic characters, explicitly autistic characters.
All right. Now the one question is, how does the judging process work?
Yeah, so there's a reading process that starts. We've got a couple of people who work in the industry. There are actually a lot of people who are writers who also have done reading for other competitions. So we have some of those guys. And then once we get down towards the end of grading and sorting out the scripts, which is a pretty normal process in a script writing competition, we pull in, excuse me, other experts who are going to be the prize presenters, basically, so that we'll whittle it down to, like, I don't know, the top 3, 5, however many sci-fi scripts. And then we get somebody who is known in the animation world for sci-fi kids shows, like whatever, Transformers or the DC Extended Universe. And then that person will pick the winner, basically, in that group. We're also going to have autism consultants working at all stages of the process to make sure that the representations of autism that are in the script, at least that they get the opportunity to weigh in and say, "Ooh, this is something you should know about. This is bad, or this is good, or
And
this is
that'll also
unusual."
include actually autistic consultants, I hope.
Yeah. Oh no, all the autism consultants we will be using are autistic, and then some
Okay.
of the writers who are also judging will be autistic,
Excellent.
um, and everybody involved. Well, not, I guess the experts. We're trying to get people who don't necessarily think about autism that much to start
No,
thinking
no.
about it,
I
right?
mean, having both is fine, but
Mhm.
I know it's become, particularly among those of us like myself who are adults in the autism community, that often there's a huge part of the world that, like, seems to think that autism ends when you become an adult.
Right.
um,
No, these guys are autistic. The
as it
autism
turns out, kids
consultants.
grow up
Yes. Well, they're also
and
professionals,
they
and
don't
so we'll
stop
be
being left-handed.
we'll be paying them an honorarium because, if you're a writer, if you're doing a spec script, I guess you do what you got to do. But ultimately,
Right,
professionally, if you are writing scripts with an autistic character, you really ought to have an autism consultant if you're not
right.
autistic yourself, or you don't have autistic folks in your writing room or on your team. And it's important that those people get paid. So we're going
Yeah.
to also be a part of
No, I
that.
mean, it comes up to me because one of the reasons that I finally have an autism diagnosis is that autistic people were involved in the DSM-5. So it wasn't just people looking at statistics and defining autism without having lived autism. It was it was people who were autistic going, "Oh, no, no, no."
Hmm. Yeah.
Because they can do this doesn't mean they're not autistic.
Hmm. That's right. Yeah, and
Um,
of course, as you've talked about a million times, autism presents in a million different ways, and that's why
exactly.
that's part of the reason I feel like, whatever I can do to get as many different characters out there, hopefully we'll have a lot of different types of representation as well,
Well,
so that you can see the
well,
different
and
flavors of autism.
I mean, I'll just say that I mean, part of how you won me over that there needed to be more explicit um representation, because there are thousands of characters out there that like autistic people see as autistic. We see ourselves in the characters.
Mhm.
Um but like particularly right now when we have an administration that's talking about autism like it's this holy hell worst thing that could ever happen to somebody is that they could be autistic. Don't take Tylenol, etc. Um, like being autistic is like being left-handed. It's a trait. It's sometimes a trait that causes more trouble than being left-handed, though ask left-handed people about driving cars or lots of things that just aren't, they're built to favor right-handed people. It's not always easy being left-handed, but it's a trait like being blind. In fact, the actual autistic community has looked to the blind and deaf community a lot for how they got better represented, better aided, and treated less differently. Where it's just part of who they are rather than the defining factor of who they are. Um, so I think one of the things to me that is huge about the word being used is for those neurotypical people out there, the more they see the word attached to characters that they love, the more they go, oh, oh,
Yeah, well, and a lot of, not a lot, there is certainly a significant portion of uh, the challenges of being autistic that are based in the way other people treat you.
oh yeah,
And so it's the other people who need to change them.
right,
It's the neurotypical people who
right,
need to change.
right,
And so my hope is that this is like, again, drip, drip, drip cracks the boulder. Part
yeah.
of how you change the world that autistic people are operating in, be kinder, to be more empathetic, to recognize that, like, just like being left-handed, there are a lot of parts of autism that it doesn't require an adjustment from the autistic person. It requires an adjustment from the neurotypical person around them.
And since we started this all out at baseball, one of the reasons that lefties play a lot of first base is it actually puts their glove in the position to put a better tag on the runner diving back in. So there's an argument that a left-handed player has a inherent advantage as a first baseman. There's a really good argument that a left-handed pitcher has an inherent advantage just because there are enough fewer of them that it puts the like so autism comes with its difficulties, but it also comes with its advantages that like a neurotypical person might not even be able to wrap their heads around because their heads are wired differently.
Absolutely. And so I hope that the scripts that get presented in this competition include both of those, the
Right,
the difficulties and the benefits,
right.
and recognizes that just like everybody, we have our strengths and weaknesses.
Hmm.
And I think that that's a great form of representation that I hope to see at least some of in these cartoons,
Yeah.
the animated scripts that people turn in.
All right. Did you get a chance to read Endeavor?
Endeavor, yes, I read Endeavor. It was just part one of
Right.
what appears to be a much longer story,
I
which
think I think it's at least three. It might be five.
the
That's
total,
that
the
that
one
yeah.
once it's all
That's
said and
that
done.
that's the typical length at distillery. But I saw the explicitly autistic character and immediately thought of you.
Yes, thank you for giving me that tip. Just as a quick, explanation of what was in there.
Mhm.
It seems like it's going to be a horror story, excuse
Yeah.
me, set on an old-timey pirate ship in the modern day, or something, old-timey
Right.
ship in the modern day. And
Right.
my only perception of the autistic character in the first book, you meet the character, but there was nothing about the character inherently that made you wonder even if
Ex-
that was even
except
coded.
there's
But
except
there
for
was an
flashback stuff.
explicit conversation about it with the parents, where the parents are
Right.
talking about how she was treated in school. But I've
Right.
only read the first issue, so there might be
Right.
more that comes later. And the parents are kind of talking about, typical conversation between parents of an autistic child. I'll be curious to see, is the story more, and is the character's autism in the story more centered on the character, or is it more centered on the parents and their response to the kid's autism? So, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I mean, it looks like the parents are both dead now.
Oh,
So I have
hey,
a
spoiler
feeling
alert.
that, well, I mean, you read the first issue. It's been out for a while. And like one of the premises is that they're going on a vacation with dad um um after mom has passed away. And that's part of what's hard for
Hmm.
everybody. But also, like, one of the things is it appears that all of the adults on this ship have died, and now it's
Hmm.
like the kids that have to figure it out. And that's why I am guessing that whether it's continually explicit or something that you have to remember from the beginning, the autistic traits that she has are going to wind up playing it a lot.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
my hunch is she's going to be the hero.
Hmm.
And it's
Interesting.
and it's and my hunch is going to be a lot of the different ways that she sees. I mean, that's just my. I know Stephanie, but we haven't talked about this book yet. It's been a while since we bumped into each other. So
Mm.
this is no inside information. This is like when we're reading at school, we sometimes ask kids to make predictions based on what they've read so far. That's part of reading comprehension. Um, my guess from what I've read so far is that one of the reasons that you find out she's autistic is to explain and help you understand how she thinks so differently from, and she's going to have other problems. And we've already seen that. She needs her headphones. We've seen some of the sensory stuff already. But my hunch is she's going to take center stage in like the survival story.
Mm.
But that's just a
Yeah.
guess based on what I've seen so far. Um, we'll certainly revisit it. I'm certain.
It's definitely fun to have a new autistic character that I can throw into
Right,
my panel presentation about
right,
autism in comic books.
right. Well, and the next time you do it at C2E2, like we'll reach out to Stephanie because
Oh, that'd be great.
she's in Chicago. Um, but yeah. So let's talk Martian Manhunter and Alienated. I'm gonna let you
Well,
start with
yeah,
like
let's
with
cut
why you
right to
picked
it.
Martian Manhunter and give the thumbnail and what you love about it. But then, as always, you have to guess why I paired it with Alienated.
Okay. So for the reason that I would have picked Absolute Martian Manhunter is just because since I saw the very first announcement of it, I just happened to be in the audience at, I think it was New York Comic Con last year, and they put up the slide, and it just had this beautiful art. I couldn't believe it. I'd never heard of Dennis Camp, or at least didn't know his name at that point.
I love Dennis
Um,
Camp.
and uh, and I mean, I do, now I pay attention,
Right.
obviously, but um, and Javier Rodriguez and the art style just blew the doors off the joint for me. I felt like I hadn't seen anything quite like it before. It was evocative of the phase of Martian Manhunter, or the version of Martian, my headcanon version of Martian Manhunter, which is that he's sort of steeped in the detective noir-ish of the 50s and early 60s. And that he is now in almost a kitschy way using that as his entryway into finding out about humanity. And this kind of captured that era's artistic style, not necessarily in comic books, but in popular art, the color palette and the shapes. And it was evocative of that for me, but in a modern way. It wasn't as, I found a lot of that work dry back in the 50s and 60s, and this was very much alive. So even just seeing that first slide was just kind of crazy. I was like, okay, I got to follow this. I happen to love the character Martian Manhunter, and again, like in my head canon, the perfect Martian Manhunter story is, it's called American Secrets, and it's a largely forgotten square bound story from, I think, the late 90s. Eduardo Barreto, uh, which is I think a wonderful story also. But this one, not only, I mostly would have just picked it because I loved it, and then I knew we would have something to talk about in no small part because there's a child in there who, so far, I believe, hasn't said anything, and
Hmm.
is at least coded as autistic or something. And so, we'll see whether that gets explored in later issues. Originally, this run
Yeah,
was,
I
I
mean,
believe, only
so,
supposed to
so
be 6 issues,
yes,
and now we're
so far,
already soliciting 7.
right. So far, the coding is more in the talk of was a speech therapist or an OT that was specifically discussed by the wife at one point, that he had an appointment with his
Yeah, and you're gonna miss it. And
therapist.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
His autism so far has mostly been who knows if it's autism. What the
It
character
looks a lot
is a
like
secondary
autism.
character. It does, yeah.
Right.
But it is not centered on him, at least not yet. It is
Right.
about the father and the father's struggle, and then the mother's struggle with the father,
I
and
mean,
that the
going
son
going
so
back
far
to
is
predictions though, I'm gonna say that I think it will become a thing because
it does seem like it, yeah.
I think he can see John Johns.
But he is, I think so too. But he is unlikely, I think, to become the central character of the story.
No,
Uh,
I
and
think it's
we
going to be
may
more of
not
a Silent
ever.
Bob type thing.
I think you're right. Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to know his internal monologue, for example. Maybe we
No,
will.
right.
But
I think there's going to be a massive mic drop moment that comes from him.
I suspect it is funny though that I don't know that it'll be as much of a mic drop for you and me just because we've been paying attention to
No,
it.
right.
Like a little more so than maybe the average bear.
Well,
Um,
but I mean, like you when you're watching a Kevin Smith movie, you know that Bob is going to talk at some point and
yes.
it's going to be meaningful. That doesn't make
Mhm.
it any less meaningful. So it'll still
That's true.
be that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. And so I then I got the book and I mean, I just adore it. I've been reading comics for 50 years at this point, and you feel like, and I read every Wednesday, I've been going to the
Right.
store every Wednesday. Um, and you feel like you're never going to see anything new. You're just going to see a
Right.
new variation on something you're familiar with. And to be honest, this felt new to me. There were a
Yeah.
lot of tricks throughout the course of this six-issue
This
run,
is
especially
where
if you're reading on paper,
right. This is
that were
actually where I need
fun.
to ask you if you're reading Assorted Crisis Events.
I have read Assorted Crisis Events, and I loved it. I thought it was wonderful.
Okay. Okay. I
Yes,
was
I
about
am.
to say because honestly, I think like as much as I love Martian Manhunter, it's like the second most ambitious and crazy out there comic that Dennis Camp is doing right now.
Yeah, well, I ended up buying that. I was kind of aware of it, and people were saying it was good, but I didn't buy it until I made the
Right.
connection between Martian, and probably on your podcast, from listening to
Right.
your podcast, making the connection between the writer of Martian Manhunter and the sort of crisis events. But yeah, then I went back and I think I read one, and I was like, I need to own this paper. So I went and bought the
Right.
floppies off of eBay or whatever,
Right.
and I adore it. It's just
Yeah.
great, and I'll be curious
Mhm.
to see how all the stories tie together in sort
It's
of crisis
another one
events.
that was supposed to be it was supposed to be either 5 or 6 issues and got extended. So
Oh, good.
he's done so well with two different books that he gets second arcs.
Well, so both of those books now that we're talking about them, they
Right.
push the visual element, this visual storytelling style, and in a ways that remind me of Promethea from a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I found Promethea really difficult to get
Well, it's
to
Alan
and
Moore.
through after a while. Yeah, the earlier parts I was on the
Alan Moore is
adventure,
the Dickens of
but it was
comics.
it was also the visual presentation that more that I'm
Right.
thinking about. I mean, the storytelling, yes, for me it kind of went off the rails. It started off as like a more sort of elegant, magical Wonder Woman story, and then it turned into something that was, I don't know, meditation on something I just became less interested in or found a little bit more
Right.
opaque because of the visual style. And
Right.
so in both of these two Dennis Camp
Well,
books,
that's J.H. Williams, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Promethea.
Yeah, back
Yeah.
then, yeah.
I mean, if
And I
there's an artist version of Dickens, he's it. So
yeah,
that book is just like, and I need to reread it because when I read it initially, I think I felt a lot of similar things to you, but it's also like I have an awareness that you have the densest, most layered writer in the business with one of the densest, most layered artists in the business on a
yeah.
comic book for.
It was beautiful, but after a point, I found it obtuse. This, on the other hand, I found both of these stories, but especially Martian Manhunter, Absolute Martian Manhunter,
Oh yeah,
I found really accessible.
yeah,
So it was really cool to see something avant-garde and accessible at the same time. I think that's a real
yeah.
trick,
Oh,
and I
absolutely.
and I enjoyed it so much in the first run, first read through, especially, and when you have to wait a month in between. There's a certain thing about that uh, is very exciting, and it's unusual to have that sort of month to month excitement of like, what's going to happen next? When you're 10
Right.
and Superman gets captured and he's got the kryptonite on him and it's the head cliffhanger. You're like, I think this might be the end for Superman. I don't know. But now, when you're, when you're in your 50s and you're reading that same story, you're like, well, obviously they're not going to cancel Superman because of intellectual property and blah, blah, blah. Like all the things that you didn't know when you were
There you are
10.
with your lawyer speak, intellectual
Exactly.
property.
But that's what we all do. Like, they're
I
not
know.
going to, at this age, they're not going to kill Superman and not bring him back. But with this
Right.
absolute Martian Manhunter, I felt surprised.
Yeah.
It could have gone in. I don't know what this
Well,
absolute
and that's the
universe
other
is.
thing. I mean, one of the reasons they do things like absolute universes and whatnot is that I don't know that they couldn't kill absolute Superman.
Absolutely. Or absolute Martian Manhunter. Like
Right.
you don't know. You don't know. So it kind of brings back a little
I
bit of
mean,
that
I
joy.
also, I mean, I also somewhat reject the idea that just knowing that somebody can die is what's, and I'm not saying that you were saying this, but some people say it that like, if you know they can't die, there's no tension and bullshit. There are plenty of ways to have tension that don't involve people dying.
Yeah, that is totally true. But when you think back to, your earliest comic books that you read,
Right.
every issue, you don't know where this is going to go
Right.
because it's your
Right.
first exposure to it. I had an
Right.
interesting reread of The Absolute Martian Manhunter, though, where a lot of that, the joy of surprise and like, what kind of story is this going to be and what kind of storytelling is this as I'm reading it, that was gone. And then it has to sort of stand on its own merits, separate from the surprise aspect. And it's a really great story.
Yeah, I
you
was
know,
about to say
apart
my
from all of the,
reread. I mean, I think I've read it three, maybe four times because like I'm not always great at remembering issue to issue. So sometimes when I read
oh
the
yeah,
new
me too.
month's book and like I don't know, like I'm enjoying it, but I don't remember everything, and I like reread everything before it, like immediately, and then read it again. Um, I did that a couple of times with Martian Manhunter during the run here, and I read it yesterday to be ready for this. Um, like, and it hold not only does it hold up, it gets deeper.
It gets
Like
deeper in
it's
certain ways,
it's
especially
steeped
in
in
in the reread. I think you get more empathy and understanding of his wife and of
Mhm.
her situation. And it's this really fun parallel of uh, not on the first read. On the first read, I think it's all spectacular, and it's on the second
Right,
read. I think you get this more nuanced understanding of, gee, what's going on here? What are we exploring? Because your Martian Manhunter and John Jones are in this case trying to merge their minds, basically,
right,
which is different from the original Martian Manhunter, where it was an alien who would disguise
right,
himself as John Jones. So there
right.
was no inherent conflict of who am I.
No,
Um,
yeah,
in
this
this
is
one, there
more an
is.
inhabit John Jones.
Yeah,
And
and so
I think it's in the it's in the extra readings that I also start seeing the ways that John Jones both welcomes and pushes back against this other presence
yes,
because like
which he has both internally and externally, and that's what I
right,
think is the fun meditation of the story. Whereas the main story, of course, is well, there's a plot, of course, but the main character development is, how are these two minds going to merge? How are these two
right,
people who now occupy the same space going to merge together? Drawn right next door to, how are you supposed to be married, which is the same thing. How are you supposed to merge your life with this other
right,
person's life? How do you manage this voice in your head, uh, and how do you maintain a single unit while being separate people? So it's just really fun to see the relationship between John Jones and the Martian, and parallel development with John Jones's relationship with his wife, uh,
right.
which I found really just great on the second read
Hmm.
through. And then the other big issue, I think, and this is where it draws me to Alienated, is that it feels like the plot is a lot about um, the emotional, the plot, like the danger. How are we going to solve this problem? And it's a lot about paranoia and emotion and love, and how are we going to not let the anti-love forces take over, which sounds like hippie
Right,
stuff. In some ways, the Martian is kind of a proto-hippie. He's
right.
definitely like a beatnik type, which was also an aspect of the Eduardo Barreto American Secrets Martian Manhunter story back from, I think it was the late 90s.
Which
Um,
I'm gonna have to go read.
it's really fun.
Uh, yeah,
It's
no,
noir. You have to sort of remember what was going on in DC
written by
Universe at the
Gerard
time.
Jones, who does
I believe so,
some
yeah.
fantastic. I know, so I'm looking at
Okay. Yes.
it. um, who also does some fantastic work. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to
It's a
reading
different
it.
type of story, but I still think
Yeah,
it's really lovely, and in To me, it's one of the great
From August
versions
to
of Martian
October
Manhunter.
of 1992. It was a 3 issue
Old? Oh, all right.
prestige format,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's outside of mainstream continuity, but not officially in Elseworlds.
Yeah, it sort of occupies that liminal space. Like I think it would be fair in that version, in that universe of that time. It could have been, it could have been real. It bridged the gap between the Golden Age and the Silver Age. That was the
Yeah, I
point of
mean,
this story.
just looking at the cover and the brief descriptions I'm seeing, um, it feels like it's out of continuity the way that technically Batman Year One is out of continuity.
And the Golden
Um,
Age would have been sort of a similar
right,
idea at the time.
right.
Now, now we're game for everything. Everything happened. Everything is real. So I don't know that it would need to have been that strict.
Right. So, the quick rundown on Alienated, Taki, Soma, and John Broglia is that like aliens have come to Earth, but then they immediately died. Um, and it's kind of a multi-generational family story surrounding that and the one alien that was saved. Um, and yeah, it's hard to describe because like I think the heart of it is actually a coming of age story for the two teenage characters, but it also says a lot about love and it says a lot about family and it says a lot about risk and fear and whatever. Um, so yeah, I totally recommend this on Comixology Unlimited, and I'm certain it will get put into print sooner rather than later, but I don't know that it's been announced anywhere yet. But Brit, why did I pair it with Absolute Martian Manhunter? This is actually an
I feel like
easier one than it normally is.
I actually feel like there are two reasons. I mean, they're both, alien comes to Earth and makes
Right.
connections with humans. That was sort of in the face value version of it. And then the plots, strangely enough, are relatively similar, where uh, you have and character development because you have an alien who has come to Earth and is connected with a human and has to figure out how to bridge the communication gap. And Martian Manhunter, we have not fully resolved that. Alienated was a 6 issue miniseries where we got the beginning, middle, and end. So everything they had to say about Alienated has been said. Martian
Right.
Manhunter is still a little bit up in the air. So they're still figuring out that communication part. In Alienated, we come to realize that the alien can see things that the other people there can't see, and has
Well,
and
there you
eventually learns
just
how to
hit
speak English, basically.
there you just hit the autistic reason that I paired them is that
Hmm.
Martian Manhunter and Alien see things on different spectrums than the human characters in their stories. They both have the ability to see more than the people that they're communicating with.
Yeah, and the absolute Martian Manhunters appears to be
Right.
time related, where he can sort of see into the future a little bit. And that's roughly what's happening. Whereas in Alienated, it is described, he can see things on like an electromagnetic spectrum. I don't know if they ever give a name to it, where in part he could see when someone was likely to die soon. Um,
He
and
can
that was something he
see
was aware of.
strong emotions. He can see all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Um,
And both stories also have a plot that seems to resolve, it seems to lie in love and using love
mhm,
as an affirmative weapon. I get it's more of a shield, but as your power basically,
right.
in fighting the bad guy, which in Martian Manhunter appears to be an actual entity, and in Alienated is basically just how do we get home without dying, and the
Well,
answer
and
is
also that like
using
our
love.
presence here has somehow jeopardized both of our, we've thrown something off of balance. Everywhere else we've gone, it's just been okay. Here we've messed with entropy. Things have slowed down here, but if things have slowed down here, they've sped up at home. So both of our worlds are in danger if we don't fix it,
Yeah, Alienated
find the
leans more
balance
into
again.
physics. Yeah,
Right.
Alienated leans more into physics, and Martian Manhunter seems to veer more into like ESP,
Hmm.
but they're
Hmm.
obviously very similar, and
Yeah.
they're both terrific. They're both surprisingly breezy
Yeah.
uh, to get through. There's a certain, if you look at the artwork in both, there's a certain simplicity and efficiency of line work and narrowing of storytelling. So neither one is particularly sprawling. They're both very much character stories and character analyses that have a plot, that have a fun propulsive element to the story, but are largely about exploring relationships between people.
Well, yeah, and like not explicitly, but I really think Winter is somewhere on the spectrum as well, and possibly his sister, but definitely Winter. Um, that level of shyness isn't quite the right word. It's like overthinking, fear, um, not being able to pick up on social cues, being worried about sending the wrong social messages, whatnot. Just like that strikes me so much as a spectrum behavior or set of behaviors. Um, I mean, this is where we go back to what we said earlier about the advantage and the great thing about having more explicit autism in books is that, like, I think there are a lot of people who wouldn't look at Winter and go, "Oh, he's autistic." They'd go, "He's shy," or "He's this," or "He's that."
I think so. Is Winter the brother?
Yeah,
So Winter, the specific problem that he's dealing with, he's got a crush on a boy. He's a boy, and he doesn't know whether the boy he's got a crush on is first of all doesn't know if he's gay, and second of all doesn't know if he's interested in him. So it sort of doubles up the should I ask this person out on a date, you know, standard part of teenage dramas and
mm-hmm.
teenage life. And it is interesting that, you know, you could perceive him as coded as autistic. You could also sort of see him as having this universal experience. And as I was reading it, my kids are not quite that age yet, but they're getting there. And I wonder how current, you know, tweens and young teenagers deal with homosexuality. I just don't know because I'm not
Right,
that age. And when I remember back to, you know, when I was 14, 15 years old, it would have been unthinkable. This
right,
storyline would have been unthinkable, at least in my
right,
cohort in suburban New Jersey. And so it's interesting to see the evolution of that
right,
because it felt to me like I don't know this world, either in the real world
right,
or in the comic book. I don't know if
right,
this is an existential threat. If he asks
right.
out, if a gay kid asks out a straight kid, boy, he get beat up. Like, I don't know, that might have been what would have
I
happened
mean,
in the 80s. And it does not
overall, it's
seem
a
like it in this book,
yeah.
obviously. It's
Overall, it's in most places a much less existential threat than it once was, and I think in this
that's what I
place
would
it
assume,
certainly
but you
wasn't
know,
supposed to be.
I just don't have
Um,
exposure to it. So that's what that was part of that
but
increased the tension for me as a reader.
right. Oh, absolutely. And like it's always fascinating to talk with you about this stuff. Because like what what coded Winter as neurodivergent to me was more not, I mean, yes, he was having the standard, everybody has that do they like me, do they not like me, blah blah blah, that part was standard, but it was more like the specific phrasings, the specific hangups that made me go, this feels more. I mean, I didn't prepare well enough to take notes to say, and I'll have to think about this in the future. Um, when he said it this way rather than that way, it felt neurodivergent to me.
Hmm.
The way he stumbled over his words
Hmm.
reminded me of myself and or a lot of other neurodivergent people that I know or have worked with or whatever. Um, so yeah, but you're
Yeah.
right. I mean, and that, but that also goes back to my what I was saying about the power of um being more explicit, because if you're more explicit on a character like this, you've got twofold. You've got the, oh, I wouldn't have thought of him as autistic until, but I might have thought of this as annoying, and now I think of it differently.
Yeah, and
or,
also think about
you
it this way,
know,
like if it's a code, let's say that character is coded as autistic, so then you intentional, so then and you see it, you perceive it. So now you get to see yourself in the comic book.
mhm,
But if it's explicit, I get to see yourself
right.
in the
That's what I'm
comic book.
saying.
And I feel like there's a certain value. I'm not saying that, Taki Soma should have done something different with their book. Like
No.
that's not what I'm after. But if
But the next time I talk to her, I'm going to ask how she thought of Winter. I mean, we
Mhm.
talked about this book, but I think it was before I really like thought of him that way. Um, but I've talked to Taki a couple of times. I'm certain we'll talk again. I have to
Yeah, I
remember to
mean,
ask the
and
question.
you could also see the alien as coded as autistic. If you're suggesting that here's a
Right.
person here's a person surrounded by people who naturally understand language and communication and how they perceive the world, and this other person who has to consciously learn it rather
Hmm.
than have it come to them naturally and
Hmm.
intuitively. And for a lot of
And
people,
I,
that's also part of their
and I
autism
think that's another
experience.
reason why. I mean, Winter wasn't really the main character, but um, I felt like he um connected with the aliens trying to figure out things in a different way. He seemed to have a different affinity with the alien than his sibling or his grandfather, and that
Hmm.
is actually one of the things that also made me think. Because you're right, um, the aliens absolutely a metaphor could absolutely be read as a metaphor for autism.
Yeah, like a
It's
Star
like,
Trek way.
yeah, it's like, oh, okay, I have to figure out how all of these other people think
Yeah, I
because
I
it's
don't
different
happen
from
to
me.
think that was Taki Soma's intention, but I'd be curious.
No, I don't necessarily think it was, but it could be. I mean, particularly like the revelation for the alien that like because one of the weirdest things for me through the years being autistic is the things that are second nature to me or that I always notice or hear or whatever that it turns out that no, other people don't hear the electricity in the walls. Um,
Hmm.
other people can't tell what direction the wind is blowing from the slightest breeze on their arm.
Hmm.
You know, other people do drive automatically. They don't think about all 17 cars in their view and what they think they might do next, and sometimes even give them names to help keep track of them. Um, so like the alien like suddenly realizing, oh, you don't see
Hmm.
was
Yeah.
also very meaningful to me when it's like, oh, because half the time, like at least for me, one of the places that my autism has been most difficult is those times where I'm three steps ahead in the conversation. And it's not even that the person couldn't get there, it's that I didn't take them there because I didn't know that they needed to be taken there. And I was worried
Hmm.
about feeling like I was condescending. So I didn't want to take them through the steps. And here I am just babbling on because that's what I do, because that's also an autism trait.
Yeah, it's interesting, talking about the kids too. The two different books resonate differently with me as an adult. I felt Alienated was very much targeted at kids and had a very
Yeah.
childlike view of the world and their relative importance in it, and that the judgment decisions that they make were very much childlike. Uh, where, who should sacrifice what, and should we follow this lead in this mystery, or should we go to our own graduation and give a speech? The
Right.
way those decisions were made felt very much child-centered, whereas in Martian Manhunter, it feels like very adult issues. How
Yeah.
do you how do you
Uh,
specifically the relationship between the husband and the wife?
yeah. Comicsology doesn't always specifically brand genre, but I would be willing to bet that when Alienated gets published, it'll be published as a YA.
Mhm. Yeah, it feels a
Um,
little bit like that, which is fair. That's it's also child-centered, which you know lots of things should be. But it's a fun, good, breezy
oh,
story.
I don't call YA. I mean, for me, YA isn't pejorative. There,
No.
there, Like half of the best stuff out there is YA because like there's great value in seeing things from a kid's perspective.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah.
and YA is mostly a marketing term, you know. You know all about that. You
Well,
know,
it is fun. It's also
part of deciding how something gets uh, uh, marketed is more about how will it sell more than what specifically is it.
yeah. Although having a daughter who's a voracious reader, who is mature but still 10, I'm now realizing how thinly sliced the various different categories are
Hmm.
because she is a little too young for YA. And
Hmm.
even though her reading level is, up and past YA reading level, the content still is, she could read it, but it's just not quite where she is developmentally yet.
Right.
And which means that there is a category under YA that a lot
Middle
of
grade.
books are in. Middle
Yeah.
grade, is that what it is? Yeah,
Middle
yeah.
grade.
I think
And
that's
there's actually
she's
also early middle grade and then children's.
that's so great.
I
Yes,
mean,
and so they're all
early middle
thinly
grade is
sliced.
considered like grades 5 to 7. Middle grade is 6 to 8. YA is technically like 8 through eighth grade and up. How about
Well, as
that?
a parent, those things actually are meaningful to me.
Yeah.
I don't want her reading things that are too simple for her, but I don't want reading things that are too mature for her. And I am kind of grateful that there is like, okay, middle grade, there's this genre of book that I know that this is what
Hmm.
she can get the most out of.
Hmm. But that's also a marketing decision because lots of parents are like that. They
Marketing,
if
because they're communicating it
yeah,
to me because it
right.
has
If the
value to
yeah,
me.
yeah, right. Um, yeah.
But I think
So
so overall, I think they're both really great books. I
yeah.
find that I like Absolute Martian Manhunter an awful lot more, partly because of who I am and my age and stuff like that. And I with Martian Manhunter, I know that it was supposed to be this limited series, but I was sad that like, oh my God, we're only going to get 6 issues of this wonderful thing. I'm glad they are continuing it, but I also hope that I still hope it doesn't run out of steam. Like that's a little bit
Yeah.
of a fear,
Well, I
is that it
think
was
right
just
now
supposed to
they're
be this
only
little beautiful
continuing to
thing.
12. And my hunch is just because it's the way these things work a lot. Um, Dennis had a 12 issue version in his head and he had a 6
Mm.
issue version in his head.
Oh,
And
interesting.
the decision was made in time to shift.
Hmm.
I
It's
mean,
so good. My
a
understanding is that
lot
it's
of
selling
times
really
it's
well
like,
too.
a lot of times it's something like a 12 issue series got pitched and they're like, well, we can't give you 12. So we're going to guarantee 6. And if your sales are good enough after the first 4, then we'll extend it.
Apparently, it
So what'll
sold
happen
really
is you'll
well, really quickly, and
right.
this is sort of from half inside knowledge, and so
Right.
the decision might have been made very early.
Exactly. So like, he was probably not even done with rewriting 5 and 6 to be able to end it with 5 and 6 by the time
Hmm.
he was able to. I mean, and he may not have done all of the scripts. He was probably not even done though with the replotting to figure out how to fit it into 6 issues. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I think. I mean, the biggest reason I think this is because the Sun hasn't become a major player yet. I think
Hmm.
that we would have had a major scene from the Sun if he hadn't known that he was going to get 12.
Yeah, they're still just laying the sun's breadcrumbs. They haven't,
Right.
and if you expect that at
And
some
for
point
that
they're going
matter,
to
we
resolve
haven't had
that.
a major scene with the wife. We've had bigger
Uh,
scenes with the
we've had bigger
wife.
scenes. Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is like they're bigger than breadcrumbs, but they're not anywhere near fleshed out yet.
Yes, I agree. Hey, so what's your history with Martian Manhunter?
I don't actually have a lot.
I
I have
have
friends
a
that like it.
huge and deep one.
Yeah.
I've read every
My
Martian
my
Manhunter
friend
series.
Elijah is a massive Martian Manhunter fan too. The biggest reason he
Yeah.
didn't like the new 52 is they replaced Martian Manhunter in the Justice League with
Borg.
uh yeah, Cyborg.
Yeah,
Um,
and then the Martian Manhunter they did introduce was of a different nature. That's the
right,
only iteration of Martian Manhunter that I've skipped. But
right.
even going back to, his very earliest adventures were, what was he, 1959 or something like that? He got introduced. I don't know. He got introduced a very long time ago, and those early adventures were of a piece with the kinds of material you would have seen back then, pre-Marvel. Um, and then he disappeared for a while. He was in the Justice League. He disappeared for a while, and he came back, and he would come back here and there, like in a guest spot, basically, where he was not particularly fleshed out character.
1955
55, okay. Detective
in
Comics
Detective Comics
261,
225.
225, okay.
Yeah,
Um, and but when he came back in the mid 80s with the Detroit Justice League, there was a Martian invasion of Earth, and then he stayed.
right.
He has been a consistent part of the DC universe. That very first iteration when he came back was great. The Bwahaha Justice League Martian Manhunter was terrific. That's where we learned that he liked Oreos and he had a different form. There was a mini series. I think it was J.M. DeMatteis, but it could have been Copperberg. Um, and I think he had two mini series around then. Then he got the series, which was great, right around the era of JLA, the Grant Morrison book, which was terrific. Tom Mandrake and John Ostrander. Maybe I'm getting their
Right.
names backwards, but that was a wonderful
Ostrander would have been the
series.
writer and Mandrake was, but they've worked together on a lot of things really well.
I mean, that one was, my recollection is that wasn't a terribly long series, but it was a really, really good one.
All right.
As you ran through JLA, and he was great in the JLA book. The very first story arc was about the White Martians invading again, as another return to form for those guys. And he has been recognized. Oh, and then he was in JLA, the TV show, where he was essentially
Well,
the
he
heart of the
wasn't
league.
he part of Justice League International too?
Yeah, that's the Keith
Yeah.
Giffen,
Yeah, the
DeMatteis,
Keith Giffen.
Bwahaha era.
Right.
Um, yeah, that was when he came. That was the Oreos thing, and
But
and he
but
has
but yeah,
been.
no, the first Martian Manhunter miniseries, the four issue, was Mark De Mateus with Mark Badger.
Mhm. Yeah, and so
Um,
he has this really fun power set. That
so it
that
looks like
that
he was also in House of Mystery.
uh
143 to 173.
was that when he was like a backup feature? Was that a long time ago? Was that in like the 60s?
I'm pulling it up right now. It looks
But
like they
he
might have made him the main character in it. And
oh, and
this
that was
was
his main title,
64. Yeah,
Journey into
64.
Mystery.
Introducing the new John Jones, Manhunter from Mars, in issue 143.
But he had such a fun history in the 90s again, where
Yeah.
he was like the number one superhero in South America because
Okay.
unknown to everybody else, he would fly down there, shapeshift into this other character. And that was just a fun little thing that I think it was Morrison who threw that in there. There was another one during I think it was Ace
Yeah,
was the name of the
Ostrander and
series.
Mandrake was volume 2, which was the 38 issue
30,
series.
30 something. Yeah.
Yeah, 38.
They connected him to Gem, son of Saturn, that they were essentially the same race that had split into different planets and had the same similar abilities. JLA 1 million was really fun where they made him he turned into Mars, I believe.
All
Um,
right.
and so he's just had like a fun, broad history, and he's a relatively grounded character of all things, in part because the heart of most of these is his attempt to try and understand and become a part of humanity. And I just think that it just has made for a fun, general sense of character. Clark never doubts that he's part of humanity because he was effectively born and raised here.
Right.
And John
Right.
Jones came here essentially as an adult,
As
and
adult.
so had to try and figure out how to make it work. And he was, depending on which iteration of the character, he comes from tragedy that he remembers, and he has vivid memories of the life that he's lost. And the challenge of fitting into this new place is just a great fish out of water story that he seems to take very seriously, and he also sees his entry point as something very similar to the tastes of comic book readers. He likes pulpy detective stories, so he's trying to figure out humanity through these stories of where good defeats evil and crime doesn't pay, which of course is the backbone of American comic book superhero stories, which is what he is a part of. So I find him to be a really reliable, fun character over the years. And when they've departed occasionally from that and made him more alien and less interested in trying to become part of humanity, that's when I find the character less compelling. But he's in a really he's been a really great character for a very long time, and I
Yeah.
still enjoy seeing
No,
him.
I certainly need to explore him more. This is the advantage of having DC Infinity is that like when I'm in the mood, I can go find stuff a lot and quickly. So you have family in town. I
I
have
do.
other podcasts today and a wife to take care of. So we've gone thoroughly through your cabinet. So we won't necessarily go through the cabinet, but you still need to pick the book that I will either immediately pair if I immediately have something connect, or that I will text you about as soon as I do.
Let me just tell you what I'm reading right now, and we shouldn't talk about it because you're right. I do have obligations that I need to get to. But I recently read an old Superman Red and Blue story where the things that Pa Kent said to young Clark throughout his life. It might be only a 2-page story or something. It's wonderful. Um, are the things that Clark says as he is rescuing people. So
Okay.
it's I'm proud of you, and it's only 3 lines that just get kind of repeated through the story. It's really terrific. Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics by Tom Scioli.
Yep.
I'm halfway through it. It's just wonderful. I just love
It
it.
is.
Um, and anything Mark Waid is doing right now is great. Jeremy Adams' run on Aquaman right now has been terrific. I read something called Bridge Planet Nine, which is kind of a heist story that I thought was terrific.
That's on my list.
I finally binged Absolute Wonder Woman, and it is
Oh
spectacular.
my God. Kelly
Superior
Thompson.
Spider-Man. I plowed all the way through Superior Spider-Man, which I really
The old
enjoyed.
stuff.
I'm, I guess I
Doc
didn't
Ock
realize
is
how old it
Spider-Man.
was, but yeah,
Yep.
Doc Ock is Spider-Man. It's about 10 years old. I did not realize
I think it's even older than
how,
that now.
I- so I've never been a Spider-Man guy. And it is interesting that
Sad.
like I have a lot of Spider-Man and there are some stories that I like, but it just the character for whatever reason never quite resonated with me. But this Doc Ock version did,
So
where
you're the video you're the 2013, so 12 years ago.
isn't that
So
crazy? It was so long
you're
ago.
the villain guy. I see. I see.
I mean, usually I'm not. Usually I do not care for the villains. What I like about this one, it's a villain who is sort of infected by Peter's sense of morality,
Right.
combined with his own need to be superior to
Right.
Peter, where he's like, oh yeah, that guy thinks he was doing good. I'm gonna really do good. And then of course it goes crazy. So it reminds me of Squadron Supreme in a certain way, that
Okay.
that you have if the heroes tried to solve all of the world's problems, it might actually make them worse. And I thought that was really great. We Stand on Guard, I just read for the first
Oh,
time. Really
so
great,
good.
obviously.
Brian K.
DC,
Vaughan.
yeah, DC. I'd never
T-
read it. I heard about it and I thought it was terrific. Cheetah versus Cheshire is so good. And I'm glad people are talking about it too, because that's one of those books
Greg
that,
Rucka.
yeah, you could see
I
getting
talked to Greg
lost.
Rucka about it. I hadn't read it
It's,
yet. He convinced me I had to.
oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. And then DCKO, I'm not a pro wrestling guy. I was not into the comics style
I
that
am not
occurred
either, but
around
there's a lot of
1990.
wrestling comics that I'm into. Like Do a
Well,
Power Bomb by Daniel Warren Johnson was
and
amazing.
I'm also not a gamer, so like the DCKO is not aimed at scratching my personal itch, because those aren't things natural to me, and yet I love DCKO. I think
I
it's
haven't
so
read any of
wonderful.
it, but you just gave me the first positive review, so who knows? Maybe
It's
I'll
so fun.
I mean,
The
I haven't
JSA,
heard any other reviews. I don't want to make it out that I've heard bad things and you gave me a positive review.
yes,
The
fair enough.
first the first person I know who's read it just gave it a positive review, so I might not be able to skip it the way that I had intended. Thanks so
Um,
much because I don't
the
read enough comics already.
the new Batman book is great. The new
The Matt Fraction
JSA
one, oh my God.
JSA Jeff
I
Lemire is
loved it.
really great.
Which one?
The JSA by Jeff Lemire
Okay. Yeah,
is
yeah.
great. I recently read Joe Fixit for the first time. There was a Joe Fixit miniseries that somehow came across
Nice.
my desk, and I thought it was good. The Marvels Project was great. I recently read that. I thought that
The
was really good.
Brubaker?
I think so. Yes, it looks like Brubaker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Accidental Czar. I don't know that that's
Oh
something you
yeah.
necessarily know about. I
Box
thought that was
Brown.
great. Um, eight,
We talked to
Adrian
Box about that.
Adrian Tomine. I'm not sure how to say it because it's even
Tomine.
part of the book. Tomine, that people don't know how
Yeah.
to say his name. The Loneliness of the Long Distance
Loneliness of a Long
Cartoonist.
Distance Cartoonist. I
So
love that book. I love
good.
everything that Adrian does. I've been reading
And then
Adrian for 25 years.
we've been talking about a sort of time crisis. events. And then what's it called? One Bad Day, that whole series. I didn't
Those were
realize the
good.
premise of it. I
Yeah.
just read the Riddler one. I didn't realize that the
Well,
premise
the
was
Riddler
you're
one was
gonna.
amazing,
It's
but
really
all of them
great.
were good. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just that it could have been talking about marketing. It could have been marketed in a way that I would understand a little bit better, where it was out of continuity would have been the first thing, and it's this villain becoming the biggest baddest thing in Batman's world, or being the biggest baddest thing in Batman's. What if the Riddler was the Joker?
Well, I mean the marketing that I heard on it and that I looked at it all from, and still think it is I don't know that it is strictly out of continuity. I think that they left that kind of open.
Hmm.
Um, but what it is playing off of the Killing Joke, and the Joker saying all it takes is one bad day to turn anybody into a monster.
That I mean, that's the marketing that I vaguely remember.
Right.
But what the result, that's just sort of what gave us the idea to do this mini series or to
Right.
do this event. But the result ended up being in the Riddler's case, I don't remember that there probably was one bad day in the Riddler story, obviously. But it was really the story of what if the Riddler was the biggest thing in the Batman universe. And I thought that was great. It was really
which
well
which
told.
Tom which Tom had already played with. I mean, that's one of the reasons I don't know if that one is considered out of continuity because it kind of fits in with the Riddler that Tom had used
Well, it
in.
was really fun to read.
Oh yeah, no, it's phenomenal.
The Mark Wade Bizarro run on World's
Yep.
Finest. I tend to really like Bizarro stories. There've been a couple of
Yep.
really beautiful Bizarro stories in recent years, which I just think are
There's
so
a great
wonderful.
Bizarro collection a few years ago too.
There's something called A Voice in the Dark, which I read, which is it's Top Cow, and it's created by a disabled artist and writer, and it's kind of like a horror-ish story about a girl going to college. But I don't know, I just found it compelling. I have to sort of follow up on that. I'm just realizing. Uh, and what was that one called? I'm
Okay,
not
I
going to remember
haven't
the
read
name of
that
it, but
one.
I don't know. There's a lot of fun.
That one's also 10 years old.
Oh, Murder Inc. I read for the first time.
The
I
the Bendis and Oming,
think so. Yeah, it looks like Omen. Yeah.
United States of
Um,
Murder Incorporated.
The Last Days of Lex Luthor. Yes, that's the one. The Last Days of Lex
Yeah.
Luthor. I really enjoyed. Um,
But
I
so
tried
the
the
question
Manchurian.
is,
That was cute.
I mean, a lot of these I've read and would happily read again, but the question is, which one are you going to pick?
I guess I wasn't really thinking through that I was going to pick.
You're going to
Um,
pick one, and then I'll wind up pairing it either right now or once I start reading it. That's our conceit, Britt. You give me a book, and then I give an autistic pairing, and then we talk.
hmm.
And that was a great list of books. The one
Yeah,
that
I don't
I
know. To me,
haven't
that's
read
that's.
that's on my list. I mean, if I was picking from that
Why don't you pick? I mean, because
yeah, if I was
my notion
picking
is
from
not that I'm creating a book club. My notion is that I'm going through
right,
and just talking about
it
books that I've read
right
that there's a
it
possible off chance you haven't.
yeah no if I'm going from the list that you said you read Bridge Planet Nine, and that's literally already downloaded on my iPad from Hoopla because
Hmm.
it caught my attention, and I like a good heist book,
All
and
right, let's do that one.
so let's do Bridge Planet Nine, and as I start reading it, I'll tell you what we're pairing it with because I haven't read it yet, so I have no idea what we're pairing it with. But I'm certain I'll figure it out. So, Britt, as always, a blast. The do I still have it up? The competition is the AuSPEC Script Competition 2026. Or I'm sorry, the 2026 AuSPEC Script Competition. You can
Yeah, the
find
AuSPEC Awards.
the AuSPEC Awards. You can find details at the autismscene.org. Um, so, Britt, thank you so much for sharing your cabinet some more. And we will see everybody after the next page.